Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this session. Now, I'd gone ahead and created a similar video without a PPT and all of that. Gone ahead and spoken. It was more almost like a monologue that I'd had right before CAT, where I'd gone ahead and looked at all three sections and I'd gone ahead and spoken a little bit about what should be the strategy, how you should be aiming at looking at scoring well in this paper, how you can jump from one segment to the other, from one position that you are at this point in time to the next position, and so on and so forth. So I was getting a lot of requests. Students had reached out that, sir, why not go ahead and do something similar for XAT. So thought this might probably be the right time, with snap also done now, all three slots of snap done and dusted. This is probably the right time for you to go ahead and look at XAT in totality. Some of you would have already started, actually many would have already started. Some of you can look at it now with just 15 days predominantly oriented only to XAT, considering the snap tests are over, and NMAT, CAT, everything else is done and dusted. So I'm sure XAT is something that you're looking at very, very seriously. It's going to be, it leads to the admission to one of the top 5 colleges in the country. XLRI is brilliant. Everybody knows about it from an HRM perspective, but you should look at it very seriously from a BM perspective as well. Also, some of you all think, यार मुझे HR करना नहीं है तो ये नहीं जाना चाहिए, but you forget to realize that even those who go into HR do get shortlisted for consulting interviews, do get shortlisted for product roles across Google, Microsoft, and other firms that might come. So going into HR does not necessarily mean you will only get into HR oriented roles. You can actually also get into other specific roles, maybe not too much into core finance and stuff, but surely into consulting, product, and so on and so forth. So I would say look at this exam very, very seriously, because this college is one of the top colleges of the country. Now, so I'm assuming that most of you who are watching this video have already prepared for CAT and hopefully even prepared for an NMAT and SNAP and stuff like that, but at least you have some of your basics in place. So that's going to be the starting point of this video. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to delve a little deeper into 2-3 specific aspects. Okay, so I want to start off with the agenda in terms of what is it that I'm looking at. So if you look at the first thing that I'm trying to focus on in today's session, I want to look at a little bit of the XAT modalities and some very, very basic modalities in terms of paper structure kya hai and stuff like that. Okay, what is the marking scheme? That's very, very important, because we know that the marking scheme for this exam is slightly different from other exams. It's not just positive and negative marks in terms of attempt and non-attempt. There is also negative marking for unattempted questions, and how does that operate is something I'll get deeper into. Second aspect is obviously what should be your section wise strategy. Now before that, you need to understand what's the section wise expectation that you can have. So what is the analysis section wise that we can look at over the last few years. So I'll get deeper into that and specifically concentrate a little bit more from a DM perspective, because that's something very, very new, something you've not done previously. So I'll talk a little bit about that in detail. The third thing is what the previous year cutoffs have been, predominantly looking at it from the perspective of XAT 21, 22, 23. Now I hope you do realize that because the XAT exam happens in January, this year's XAT exam will be called XAT 2024. So unlike CAT, which was CAT 2023, XAT will be 24, which means XAT 2023 actually happened in Jan 2023, which was for admission for students getting into the 2023-2025 program. So that is something that we'll look at as well, which is what the last 3 years of XAT paper have thrown up. I will have a look at the cutoffs for a few years before that, probably 2017 to 2020 as well, just to give you an understanding of how it has evolved over the years. When we are looking at the section wise analysis, I'm also going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the sectional cutoffs and what you should be expecting depending upon the HRM course and the BM course, specifically from a last 3 year perspective. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the attempt strategy and what you should be looking at. Do keep in mind that at the end of the day, you need to be looking at clearing the overall cutoffs. Don't look at it from a category perspective. XLRI mostly does not have any category. I know other colleges will have category level cutoffs. So here you should not be looking at any category level cutoffs at this point in time. You should predominantly be looking at overall मेरे को cutoff कैसे लाना है. Which means the way I would look at it is, if I am a female, my aim should be scoring at 96 plus. Not only do I clear not only do I clear the cutoffs, hopefully 96 plus after clearing sectionals, but not only do I clear the overall cutoff, I have a very good chance of conversion. If I am a male, I want to look at 98 plus. Why? Once again, not only do I clear the cutoffs, and the sectionals hopefully, but I also have a good chance of conversion. So that's the way I'll predominantly want to look at it. So these are the 4 things that I'll go ahead and cover. Let's quickly go ahead and kickstart the session. Let's get deeper into the XAT modalities and look at what it is. Now I'm quite sure all of you are aware of the paper pattern. There was a slight change that happened last year, which is XAT 2023 में क्या हुआ था, 75 से 76 questions हो गए थे. Predominantly अगर पेपर देखें, there are 2 parts to it. एक part 1 होता है, which is the main part. So that is what part 1 is. Basically this has 3 sections. Verbal, decision making and quant. Now quant के साथ DIB आता है, ठीक है, and verbal के साथ LR आता है, which is verbal reasoning. ठीक है, दिस सो वर्बल एंड LR हो गया, DM एक हो गया, क्वांट एंड DI हो गया. ठीक है, ये होता है पेपर 1. इसमें क्या होता है, यू हैव 26 क्वेश्चंस कमिंग इन वर्बल, यू गॉट अबाउट 22 कमिंग इन DM एंड यू गॉट अबाउट 28 कमिंग इन क्वांट. सम टोटल अगर आप ऐड कर लोगे, यू विल सी इट्स अबाउट 76 क्वेश्चंस. ठीक है, then there is a 5-minute break because in this first half you are not allowed to access the keyboard, you only have to look at the mouse and utilize it. Then there is a second part where now you have to go ahead and access your keyboard. Why? Because इसमें ऐसे writing होगी, तो वो आपको कीबोर्ड टेस्टिंग देते हैं, आपका कीबोर्ड सही चल रहा है कि नहीं, टेस्ट कर लो. They give you a statement and ask you to write it, जिससे all the keys on the keyboard can be tested, so you can do that. An angry fox jumps over. I remember that as a kid we used to do that. So that वाला statement, ठीक है. So you can test your keyboard. So it's a 5-minute break for that, and then part 2 starts. अब part 2 में क्या है, उसके अंदर GK आता है, ऐसे राइटिंग आती है, राइट. GK के अंदर अबाउट 25 क्वेश्चंस, नो नेगेटिव मार्किंग, विच इज़ द बेस्ट पार्ट, एंड ऐसे राइटिंग 3 essays देते, यू हैव टू चूज वन. ठीक है, अब ये वाला जो पार्ट है, विच इज़ पार्ट, अब मैं उसको पार्ट 2 बोल रहा हूँ, एक्चुअली पार्ट 3 है, बिकॉज पार्ट 2 आपका कीबोर्ड टेस्टिंग है. पर ये वाला जो पार्ट है, विच इज़ पार्ट 3, दिस इज नॉट टेकन इन टू कंसिडरेशन ड्यूरिंग शॉर्ट लिस्टिंग फॉर इंटरव्यूज. फाइनल कन्वर्जन के टाइम समटाइम्स दे लुक एट सम ऑफ योर मार्क्स. सो it is important, I will not say it is unimportant. Try, even if you score about 5, 6, 7 in GK, you are good enough. ठीक है, and वो इतना difficult होता नहीं, easy to do होता है. For me, somebody who is not good at GK at all, I think last year I scored roughly around 11 marks. So उसमें entertainment industry, cricket oriented बहुत कुछ आ जाता है. So a little bit if you know about that, से IPL के बारे अगर थोड़ा बहुत पता है, अगर आपको क्रिकेट के बारे थोड़ा बहुत पता है, अगर आपको FIFA के बारे थोड़ा बहुत पता है, if you are a little bit aware of the entertainment industry, if you are aware of these sort of basic the Russia-Ukraine war, if you are aware of what is happening in Israel with respect to Israel-Palestine issue, Hamas and so on and so on. If you're aware of the basic things happening in and around you, should be able to do it. Okay? It should not be very difficult. What we've done is we've gone ahead and put a compendium for GK already on the app. So go ahead and have a look at it. That is surely going to help you. Last year a compendium we had put up, close to almost 22 to 23 out of the 25 questions came from there. So if you look at that compendium, it will help. It will also help all of you all who are preparing for a GDPS stage already. मेरे को PI VAT के लिए prep करना है. आप ये compendium देखोगे, you will get to know all the topics which are important. You can go through that and it will help you. So it's going to help all kinds of students. So go through that. ठीक है, that's important. So next is analytical, as I told you, essay writing, 3 topic आते एक पे लिखना है. So this part you don't need to worry too much about in terms of getting a call. What we need to worry about is part 1, and the entire session upcoming, this rest of the session what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to predominantly deal with part 1. ठीक है, GK and essay के लिए कभी future में एक और वीडियो बनाएंगे. There are also few sessions which are going on, which we are having, XAT crash course going on right now, which I hope you are attending. उसके अंदर all of this is going to be covered, so don't worry. ठीक है. Overall, if I look at it this year, what is a slight change that is happening? Well, one change is, till last year this part 1 was 165 marks, 165 minutes. This year it is 175 minutes. Part 3 continues to be 30 minutes and testing is 5 minutes. So अगर add कर लो 175 plus 5 plus 30, that's 210 minutes, which is basically what the entire paper is. Clear? As simple as that. Cool. I hope this part is very clear to everybody. If I look at it from an exam pattern perspective over the years, you will see that the exam pattern has predominantly not changed a lot. If you look at it, verbal, almost you can turn around and say I'm looking at 7 years here, 26 का 26 ही रहा है. क्वांट 7 साल में यार 2 साल थे जब 27 था, वो 28 हो गया है. DM ऑलमोस्ट एवरी ईयर 21 रहता था, 7 sets of 3 questions. These last year it became 22. This year also they are sticking to 22. So predominantly paper pattern never really changes. GK and essay writing also remains the same. So there is nothing new that is going to be thrown up at you. Okay, let's look at the exam pattern. Like I've already spoken about, your marking scheme is +1 and -0.25. So better than CAT because negative marking कम है. So it's almost like saying I attempt 10 questions, I get say 6 right and 4 wrong. So 6 right is +1, 4 wrong is just -1. 6 right is +6, 4 wrong is -1. So you end up getting a +5. Please keep that in mind. So that helps you. Second is there is negative marking for unattempted question. Now what does that mean? Imagine there are 76 questions. Say you attempt 56 questions. So 20 you have not attempted. these 20 you've not attempted, for each of them there is a negative marking of 0.1. 0.1 into 20 karo, that means 2 marks you are losing. How is this 2 marks calculated? It is calculated in the ratio of the total number of questions in the section, which means ये negative marking apportion होगी. Verbal में you have 26 questions out of 76, so it will become 26 by 76 into 2, which is equal to 52 by 76 roughly, right? इसको आप कैलकुलेट कर लो, 0.7 के आसपास कुछ आएगा. उतना नेगेटिव मार्क्स विल बी अपोर्शन टू वर्बल. Similarly, DM, if we calculate, what will it become? 22 by 76 into 2, which is 44 by 76. इसको अपोर्शन कर लोगे slightly less than 0.6, right? 0.5 something, 0.56, 0.57 वैसा कुछ आएगा. उतना negative mark will get apportioned to DM, and the remaining whatever is left will get apportioned to quant, which will be roughly like 0.73, 0.74, something in that range. So that's how apportioning of negative marking basis the unattempted questions work. I hope this part is very clear to all of you and there are no doubts related to this. Total time limit, as I said, this is not 190, it's a typo, please forget it. This is 210 minutes with no sectional time limits. Okay? Okay. GK has no negative marks we've spoken about. One important thing, there are 5 answer choices here. So 1 out of the 5 will be correct, not 1 out of the 4. And finally, you can only proceed to part 3, okay, of the exam after you completed part 1. This is very clear. Do catch Savitri ma'am on 27th and 29th of December at 7 p.m. where we go ahead and have exclusive sessions on essay writing for XAT. As I told you, don't worry, we'll have sessions on that, so that is going to be handled. Do attend that. It will help you a little from an essay writing perspective कि मेरे को क्या handle करना है, क्या expect कर सकता हूँ, क्या expect कर सकती हूँ, whatever, depending on who you are. ठीक है. Finally, one important thing is, many of you all, I'm sure almost everybody has written CAT, so at least let's look at a XAT versus CAT comparison. Ki what is the difference, what can we expect? Level of difficulty, if I talk about, I will say CAT 2023 was already tough. I think XAT 24 will be similar to CAT 23. Difficult for it to go one notch higher. Moderate to difficult in general, बोल रहे with respect to CAT 23, I think I would turn around and say XAT 24 will be very similar to CAT 23. According to me, in terms of LOD. Don't be surprised if you actually come out and feel that it was slightly easier. Reason being, you have more time. ऐसे नहीं कि वो easier है, but time ज़्यादा है. 2 घंटा versus almost 3 hours, right? So that's why it will help. Plus no sectional time limit. So you might want to go ahead and spend much more time on quant as compared to something else. So that's another. Second, all MCQs here. So there is no non-MCQ, no theta. That's a big advantage. Yes, there is a penalty of non-attempted questions, which is not there in CAT. So that's an important thing. But ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं है. मैंने अभी आपको दिखाया 20 questions you leave unattempted, फिर भी 2 mark का फर्क आएगा. So you need to take a call. You don't purposely need to force yourself to attempt something. It's not necessary. Okay, but considering the amount of time you have, generally you will be able to attempt about 62 odd questions, which means 62 odd questions where, oh, I think I made one error here, my bad, one error which I made here, for which I need to come back here, apologies for that, which is I said 20 questions are unattempted, but negative marking starts only after 8 questions. So 20 minus 8 kar do, which is 12 questions ke liye you are getting negative marking. Okay, so let me remove all this calculation. By mistake, I stated that, so I will just edit that all for you. So that 12 questions you will get negative marking. Now this 12 question into 0.1 is negative of only 1.2. So negative of 2 bhi nahi hai, negative of 1.2 hai. Now do that calculation that we were talking about. Verbal mein the apportioning will be how much? 26 by 76 into 1.2. So that's the amount that it gets apportioned. Now 26 by 76 if I'm looking at, you know that you're basically turning around and say more or less 1/3, right? 26 into 3 अगर हम करते 78, more or less 1/3. So 1/3 of 1.2 अगर करेंगे roughly 0.4. So 0.4 से 0.4 से थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा होगा, roughly something around that range. So you know that that's predominantly how I'm operating. कि only 0.41, 0.42 is going to get apportioned to your verbal. So that's how negative marking operates. Okay, so it's not even what I stated कि 2 marks पूरे चले जाएंगे, only 1.2 goes because first 8 questions you don't get penalized. Which is what I was stating कि अगर आप 60 questions attempt करते हो hypothetically, first 8 questions you don't get penalized. You get penalized only for the remaining 8. So 8 question penalization is only 0.8 marks, and 0.8 when it gets attributed to verbal roughly 1/3, 0.27, 0.28 के आसपास attribute वहाँ होगा. क्वांट में उससे थोड़ा ज़्यादा एट्रीब्यूट हो जाएगा. सो दैट्स द वे इट विल ऑपरेट. ओके, सो प्लीज कीप दैट इन माइंड. ओके, कूल, परफेक्ट. Let's go ahead. Time per question, another very important part. In CAT you got about 108 minutes, here you got about 108 seconds, here you got about 132 seconds, mainly because 10 questions का फ़र्क है, but वो 10 questions के फ़र्क में you have a 55 minute का फ़र्क as well, right? So please keep that part in mind कि वो जो 55 minutes का फ़र्क है वो कितना आपको affect कर रहा है, right? So the way, and if you all are thinking how I've calculated it, very simple. In terms of this calculation, how would we go about it? We'll go about and state there are roughly about 175 minutes into 60 by 76. That's the roughly the amount of time that you can go ahead and put it. Okay? So 170 into 60 by 76 is what I'm looking at. Clear? So isko if I calculate, you can turn around and say, let's actually go ahead and calculate it. 4 goes here 15 times, 4 goes here 19 times, 175 into 15 by 19, 19 goes in 175. This is good quick calculation that is happening. If I do it 9 times, you get 171, then 4 left 40. So 40 will give you 9.2, then 20. So 9.21 into 15. 15 into 9 if I do 135. 0.2 into 15 once again. 0.2 into 15 is roughly going to be about 3. So you're actually talking about 148 seconds. This 132 was last year. Now it's gone up to 148 seconds. You have actually more time. Which is why I wanted to calculate, because I wanted to verify कि actually उतना time है कि नहीं. ठीक है? So sorry, not 142, 138. 148 नहीं, 138. Yeah, roughly about 138 seconds hai, which is why the time has actually gone up a little, right? So please keep that part in mind. That there is approximately that much amount of time that you have at your disposal. 175 questions, 175 minutes, into 60 gives you that many seconds, and divided by 76. Okay? So roughly that's the way you should go about and look at it, that there is that much time at your disposal that you have with respect to the number of questions. Perfect. Now let's move on. In terms of sections also, as I said, the only additional part here is general knowledge and essay, but that general knowledge and essay, you don't need to worry too much about. We also have a few sessions coming up, so ज़्यादा fight नहीं है. Let's quickly move on to the next part, which is the important part, which is section wise. अगर हम इसको analysis करें कि what is it that we can go ahead and expect. Let's look at VALR. Let's start with this. If you look at this part, you will realize that there are multiple types of questions, the multiple, I should say, subsections to focus on. Predominantly, if you look at it, RC, there is a huge weightage, right? If you look at it from an RC perspective, you will see 12 to 15 questions aate hain. So if I look at it from the last 2 years perspective, 26 questions hai, 12 questions have been RCs. So we are clearly very clear on the fact that almost 50% of the paper is RCs, and you get about 4 to 5 RCs. The objective that at least I would have is, the way I like to look at it is, verbal mein net I want to give about 45 to 50 minutes. Say I'm giving 50 minutes. Iske andar I want to give 30 minutes to RCs. Okay? And say in those 30 minutes I attempt 10 questions. Even if you get say 6 right and 4 wrong, you are still turning around and looking at 5 marks. Correct? I'm looking at worst case scenario here. This is not for students who are very good. I'm looking at worst case scenario. You're still going to get about 5 marks in 30 minutes. Now I have another 20 minutes to go, and this is where this comes into the picture. This, and where is it? This. These are the places where you need to maximize. These are the easy questions. These are not very difficult. If you've already done SNAP, you've done, NMAT, also you've done a little bit of CAT as well. This is not going to be very difficult, especially SNAP and NMAT. If you've done grammar is something you should have handled. Vocab is something you should have handled. So if I look here over the last 2 years, 2, 4, 4, 3, 7, 7, 8, 9, 9 questions. Is 9 mein you should look at 6 correct, 3 wrong. That gives you another 5.25. So you have 5 here, 5.25 here, you've got your 10.25. And the good part about these 9 questions is, per minute, they won't even take you 2 minutes. But let's say it takes you 2 minutes, you're still done with 30 plus. So 48 minutes done, you still have some time left and you're already scoring 10 plus. The moment you hit 10 plus, you're very, very sure of the fact कि यार हो गया है, मैं 90 percentile के आसपास हूँ. मैं 90 percentile के आसपास. You still have 2-3 minutes left. You can look at poem and critical and try to get 1 mark from here. The moment you cross 11, everything is done, sorted, life is sorted. 91, 92 के आसपास आने वाला. So that's predominantly the way I like to look at this paper, which means do not worry about spending 30 minutes here. And why am I saying 50 here? Because if you spend 50 minutes here, DM generally takes roughly about 45 minutes in total. 50 plus 45, 95 ho gaya. You have 80 minutes left for quant, which is good enough. So that's the way I like to approach this part of the paper and this section specifically. Okay, RCs generally, it's not always very, very long. They also have a tendency of giving shorter RCs with, just 2 or 3 questions. So be aware of that and pick and choose the RCs properly. Okay, that's about it. I will once again, categorically state you need to look at maximizing vocab, grammar, contextual, parajumbles. This is where marks are there. you need to get those marks, don't leave them out. Okay, 5-6 marks यहाँ से आराम से मिलेंगे, and it does not take a lot of time. Okay, poems is something which is additional. So poems also we have sessions. I hope you're attending them, especially those of you enrolled in OMET. I hope you're attending the sessions that are there. Poem is something which is slightly unique. It has started coming in Snap as well. I'm sure you saw it in Snap this year and last year. But in Snap, what they turn around and do is they give you the poem and they ask you something related to grammar. Conjunction क्या है, इसमें preposition क्या होगा, adjective, adverb क्या होगा, stuff like that. Here it won't be that. Here they will try to understand whether you understand what the author is trying to say. If I'm not wrong, there was a question related to Julius Caesar, right? Hence whom you idle creatures get you home. Is this a holiday? What know you not being mechanical? You will not walk upon a laboring day without the sign of your profession. Speak, what trade thou art, right? Or art thou? So that thing I still remember, Julius Caesar had come up. So that's what predominantly comes up. They'll give you a poem, or they give you a Julius Caesar snippet prose, and they'll ask you and they'll try to check whether you understand what is happening. So that's predominantly it. That is unique generally to this part of the paper, unique to XAT. It does not come anywhere else. As I said, comes in Snap, but from a very, very different context. So do prep a little related to that, but it's not a game changer. It's not something that's going to be very important. For those of you who are looking at, nahi, मेरे को verbal में high score करना है. Verbal में I want to go ahead and score about very, very close to a 99 percentile. That means you need to be roughly around 14-15 marks is what you should be looking at. If you want to be 14-15, things change. Well, then I would turn around and say in 30 minutes, then your RCs will probably need to be better. I'm sure you will be better. You will probably get 7 right and 3 wrong. So 6.25 वहाँ हो जाएगा. यहाँ पे even if you get 5.25, you're already looking at 11.5. And versus somebody who's not that good, you wouldn't take 48 minutes to do it, you'll probably take 42-43. So you'll save 5 minutes and you'll score 1 mark extra. In those 5 minutes, the funda is poem and critical reasoning. मेरे को 2-3 mark और निकालने हैं. And that way you're hitting or knocking on the door of a 14. 14-15 generally is going to be 99 percentile in verbal आराम से. So that's the way you should orient yourself in terms of how I want to score in this part of the paper. Okay. If I look at the verbal sectional cutoffs, if I look at it from the perspective of last 3 years, let's start with XAT 21. As I was talking about, 99 roughly 14-15 के आसपास ही है. 90 अगर मैं देख लो वही 10 to 11 के आसपास, which is what I was talking about. Generally it does not cross that. And if you look at it, what was required as a sectional cutoff, not a lot. If you look at the highest sectional cutoff was for HR female engineer and HR male engineer. So HR में 80 percentile was required, and if you look at 80 percentile, just about 8.5-9 marks. So not more than that. So sectional cutoff did not cross that in XAT 21. Look at it again from a XAT 22 perspective. फिर से वही देखोगे 99 is close to 15. Generally 15 से ज़्यादा होता नहीं. 90 is again close to वही 10.5, 10.65. Highest sectional once again around 80 for these three, and 80 is once again around 8.6. So मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ 9 के आसपास अगर you done, you were sorted in these years. However, if you look at it from the perspective of last year the paper I think was slightly easier, which was XAT 23. DM and verbal both ended up being slightly on the easier side, which is why you'll see the cutoffs went higher. And you have to have the ability of understanding when I'm in the middle of a paper that this paper is easier. How will you know that? You will know that because you've attempted the PYQPs. Ensure last 3-4 years के जो XAT के actual papers, you've gone ahead and attempted them as mocks, not as sectional, not as standalone question, but as mocks, so that when you are experiencing the exam on the 7th of January, you are able to compare an actual overall paper versus an overall paper and understand this is easier or difficult. Okay? So if I look at it from a last year perspective, if you look at it, BM में 75 percentile था, which was 9.5. Right? And suddenly if you look at it from an HRM perspective, वो 90% चल गया, which is 12 marks. So 90 percentile 12 जो in the previous 2 years was about 10.5, 10.65. So you are seeing about a 1.5 mark difference suddenly cropped up. So that is a very, very important thing to keep in mind, that if the paper is easier, that 1 to 2 questions additional is something you'll have to look at. Okay? Let's move to DM, which is the second section. Now this is unique. DM is basically decision making. They'll give you a particular type of scenario or a particular type of case, and they'll ask you questions oriented to what sort of decisions you will make, right? So if you look at it, it's predominantly caselets which come up. So if you look at it, last year there were 8 caselets, 6 of them had 3 questions, 2 of them had 2 questions. The year before, and for a long time here, if you will see, it's all 7 caselets. In fact, before that as well, it was all 7. So it was almost always 21 questions that come. Now you can expect 22 because last year there was 22. Generally, the way it comes up is, and I want you to have a look at the genres that have been asked over the previous years to get an understanding. Business genre, predominantly something that has been focused on, but see, last year nothing came from business, and last year suddenly from this HR part, there were 10 questions that cropped up. So a lot of questions that came from this HR part last year. right? HR oriented caselets which come. So if you look at it from that perspective, I will turn around and say business and HR, followed by education, then followed by personal situation, then followed by kingdom territory, followed by PR. So सबसे ज़्यादा stress अगर आप लोगे वो इन questions पे है. The other type of caselets that generally crop up and then questions that come from. So this is something you should focus on. Now for each of these, once again there are different types of questions that come. This is genre कि business oriented कोई caselet है, entrepreneurship oriented कोई caselet है, personal situation oriented कोई caselet है, आपको एक महाराजा बना दिया of a kingdom वो oriented कोई caselet है. You know, what should an HR do in this sort of a situation? They'll give you a couple of cases and what should the HR do? That sort of case. So those are the kind of situations. But within them, what are the kind of questions that come? कि HR हो, आपको ये सॉल्व करना है, पर मैं क्वेश्चन क्या पूछ रहा हूँ? क्या मैं आपको कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन पूछ रहा हूँ? क्या मैं आपको बोल रहा हूँ यू नो दैट these are the possible scenarios in front of them, arrange them in the order in which you feel they are most feasible? मैं वो टाइप का बोल रहा हूँ, मैं किस टाइप का क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा हूँ? तो अगर वो हम देखें, the type of questions become very important here. If you look at this course of action, now course of action is something almost like, you know, what should be the next course that I will go ahead and apply. This is something that you would have seen a lot of, you know, when it comes to what should I say, NMAT and SNAP दोनों में course of action काफ़ी आते हैं, right? कि भैया what is the relevant course of action that can be taken now. So I think that is something which is very, very important, the course of action questions, because they are something that you are already oriented to. You know, which of this makes sense as the next course of action. So that is something you're already oriented to. Have a little bit of practice. The best way to practice DM is last 10 years PYQP. Now each of them roughly say if there are about 20-21 questions, like I said, so there are 200 plus questions here. Next is 8 mocks of BYJU'S exam prep. We are orienting them to the last 3 years papers that have come and giving you all different kinds of combinations. 22 questions plus there, so that's 175 plus questions there, 200 plus of PYQP. Other than that, sessions. Now if you have enrolled with us in the OMET course, you would have seen already 4-5 classes have happened, 2-3 more will happen through the crash course. If you've not enrolled with us, we'll have a couple of open sessions on the crash course on the YT channel, attend those. But you know, assuming you're enrolled with us, then roughly about 6-7 sessions, each class about 12 to 15 questions, we're talking about another 70 plus questions. If I add all of this, we are looking at roughly almost in the vicinity of about 450 questions. If you've done all of this, 450 divided by 3, that's 150 unique sets. If you've done, you're good enough and you'll do well in DM, in XAT. Okay, that's predominantly how you should focus. Within that, now as I was stating, if you look at the type of questions, this course of action type of questions, you will find a lot of them here. So if you're looking at मैं oriented to this कैसे पढ़ूंगा, through all of these kind of sets, through all of these you know, all of this material that I've spoken about, you'll get all of these kind of questions, which is important. Next is reasoning. Now reasoning also is almost like you know, turning around and saying this is like critical reasoning, right? If true, then false. If true or false, then what will happen? Which of the given you know, options will help you take a decision? Those sort of things, right? You have to reason it out. You have to think. अगर ये सही हुआ तो you know, these are kind of your CRRC questions like those which came in CAT, which might also come in XAT. So it's almost like those kind of, but the scenario is simpler. Scenario is easier to understand because it is not an RC passive which you don't understand. It's an actual real life scenario which is easier to comprehend and understand. Then comes arranging in order. Now arranging in order is not is not easy, you know, because arranging in order में मेहनत बहुत जाती है. उसमें क्या होता है? They will turn around and they will ask you that you are supposed to arrange you know, the options which are given in either the increasing or a decreasing order of priority. So I give you a particular situation and I say these are the possible outcomes, or these are the possible steps that you can take, you know, based on the situation that have come. Now tell us what will be the priority order, which of this is the best possible you know, decision or that you can take, which of this is the worst. So best possible से start करके worst, या फिर उल्टा, which of this is the worst and which of this will be the best. So worst possible से start करके best possible. So that's how you need to arrange it, those sort of questions. Then multiple options, then they will give you a particular scenario and they tell you which of the following options is something that the HR should go ahead and you know, apply. So there will be 4 or 5 statements, and then they will say 1, 3 and 5, then 2, 4 and 6, only 2, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So इनमें से कौन से plausible that the HR should go ahead and do. Now इसमें it is not about ordering, इसमें से it is only about those possible situations or those possible scenarios that the HR can look at, which is something that they would want to go ahead and put. So इसमें arrangement is not important, least likely, most likely is not important. Anything which is likely should be pulled in and you should look at it. And finally there could be an DM, which is an RC, which is a calculation based, like for example the Pudi Sabzi set which came last year, something like that. So that is the other kind of question that can come up. So DM mein predominantly genres are limited, some 6-7 genres. Type of questions are also limited, but the type of question and genre ka combination can keep changing at any point in time. And as you saw course of action, reasoning, इससे बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस आते हैं फॉलोड बाय मल्टीपल ऑप्शंस. अरेंजमेंट उतना ज़्यादा नहीं आता. लाइक इफ़ यू लुक एट लास्ट ईयर 2023, ऑलमोस्ट एवरीथिंग इज मल्टीपल ऑप्शन, राइट? अ लॉट ऑफ इट. Very few questions which have come from course of action. So I think that becomes very, very important, and that is what you predominantly need to look at, and that is where generally there is a little bit of trickiness as well, because you end up missing out on one particular thing, right? ये एक particular अगर miss हो गया, statement 2 भी possible है पर मैं statement 2 डाला नहीं तो मेरा full answer गलत हो गया. So that is something that you need to be careful about. Important thing with respect to cutoffs is, if I look at it from a XAT 21, XAT cutoffs keep wavering a lot. Now 22 was very difficult, 23 became very, very easy, which you will see now in the cutoffs. If I look at XAT 21, you see sectional cutoffs, they never cross 75, and 75 percentile अगर मैं देख रहा हूँ, I'm roughly talking about 8 marks. So you never needed more than that. 99.5 पे आता है, 99 12.5 पे आता है, right? But if you look at XAT 22, suddenly things changed. The paper became very, very difficult. So it all went down. What happened there? The sectional cutoffs also, the expectation went down 70, 72. But look at 72 कितने पे आया था? 72 was roughly 5 marks. That's it. It dropped by that much because XAT 22 was not easy. Some of the answers till date, not many of us agree with because it just didn't make a lot of sense. But if that is the kind of situation that comes up where it's very tricky and difficult to do, look, 99 percentile के भी 10 mark नहीं चाहिए थे. Right? So then accordingly you need to change your strategy. Whereas last year it became very easy. Look at the sectional cutoff, you're saying 75 percentile, and sectional cutoff के लिए 9.77 marks चाहिए थे मुझे in order to get to that 75, right? So that's what you need to be very, very careful about, कि भैया मेरे को अगर उतना cutoff चाहिए तो मेरे को क्या लाना पड़ेगा, right? Correspondingly. So that's one part which I would say that you need to be very careful of, and you need to ensure that there are no errors that crop up. ठीक है? So some of you might be thinking at this point in time, यार overall cutoffs और वो कहाँ दोगे? Just to showcase to you कि मैंने एक full section बनाया हुआ है जहाँ मैं आपको overall cutoffs के बारे में भी बात करने वाला हूँ. ठीक है? For example ये है XAT 21, 22, 23 का. So I will come to this in case you are worried about कि यार मेरे को overall cutoffs और वो कहाँ पे दिखेगा. Don't worry, हम लोग आएंगे and we'll have a chat about that. ठीक है? So don't worry too much about all of that. ठीक है? Let's get back to where I was. This is just me preempting in case you are wondering कि वो कब आएगा. Okay? So we've already spoken about the cutoffs, XAT, DM. Now DM में my recommendation of the strategy that you should be applying. Now DM generally I would say there are 8 sets. Attempt all. Generally there is very few that you will not be attempting. If you have about 45 minutes, you are basically giving yourself roughly about 5 to 6 minutes per set. You will not need more than that also. इतनी कोई confusion, मतलब इतना कोई difficult नहीं है रीड करने को, इतना रीड करने को ज़्यादा नहीं होगा. It's predominantly about मेरे को confusion होगी, ये वाला आना है ये नहीं आना, ये priority है नहीं है. For example, if I turn around and I state, the motto of my company is I want all individuals who have a lot of humility in them. And then among the options that turn around and state that you should come out and at the year end review we ask all of you all to turn around and look at some of your point out some of your weakness, or I ask you to point out your weaknesses in a public forum, or when you join I ask you to share your weaknesses with other joinees, or say as a part of incentivization I say every year point out 3 weaknesses you will work on, and if you work on them and you're successful I incentivize you. Now in सब में अगर आप देखो ऐसा अगर मैं आपको एक question दे दूँ, actually first and fourth both of them look very likely, right? From a company's perspective, if they want to achieve their goal, it makes a lot of sense to incentivize somebody, and if they do it, it helps them grow, it helps them improve and stuff happens. But humility नहीं आती ना उसमें मेरे अनुसार, because if you're incentivizing somebody to do it, just to get that incentive I might be doing it. I'm not becoming a person who is full of humility not to do it. So this is the trick where you need to be very, very careful about what is the question asking. Question is asking, the company wants the motto to be that individuals are full of humility and they want everybody to have that or ingrain that. Now if I want to ingrain that, I need to ensure that the action that I'm talking about is something where I don't need to incentivize them to do this. I need to get this ingrained in them. So how will I get it ingrained in them? By asking them to be open and sharing it with me during a review, and then seeing whether you work on that. I don't need to incentivize you for that. I need you to do it on your own. So that's the way I would look at it. That's the way that I would look at these things, that these small things also turn around and matter. Okay, perfect. Let's move to quant. So quant का अगर आप if you go ahead and have a look at the analysis, अगर आप previous years देखो, look at it from the last few years, one thing that you will find here is generally there is a very good breakup. There is a good amount of weightage given to topics which do not come too much in CAT. For example, numbers and modern math. You will see a decent amount of weightage here. Last year 5 questions out of अगर मैं DI हटा दूँ, so 28 में से 6 क्वेश्चन हटा दूँ and से DS भी हटा दूँ, so 20 में 25% of your paper was numbers and modern math. Year before that 7, जिसमें से 13 questions you need to remove, so 7 out of 15 roughly, which is a huge number, right? The year before that 2, the year before that 3. So generally numbers and modern math is something that this paper really concentrates on. So do go ahead and not leave that in totality, work on it, okay? फिर से arithmetic as always rules the roost, like we always state, but this is also a paper where you will see geometry has more questions than algebra. So be open to that. Heights and distances becomes important, 3D geometry becomes important, 2D भी important होगा. So geometry के काफ़ी questions आएंगे, ठीक है. The way I like to look at this paper is I like to look at DI. And especially if I am somebody, I am not good at quant, hypothetically, ठीक है. अब मेरे को ये पता है कि मेरे को 10 plus अगर आ गया, I'm sorted. 10 plus, that means I'm sectional cutoff is done. Look at DI. Last year 6, year before that 12, then 9, then 8, then 6, then 6. Imagine 60 questions. Imagine 6 questions, which means 2 DI sets. Say I attempt all 6, I get 4 right, 2 wrong, which means I get 3.5. This can be done in about 20 minutes. Now I still have 60 minutes remaining with me where I need to do quant and I need roughly about 6-7 questions net correct. So मैं 60 minutes में 6-7 ही करूँगा और सब सही करूँगा is the way I would look at it. I would like to work on accuracy. That way then I am not concerned. Every question takes me 10 minutes also great. If I can attempt more, nothing like it. And if I am lucky, say DI ज़्यादा आ जाए, say you get 12 questions like the year before or 9 like the year before. Let's assume there are 9 questions. In 9 questions you can work harder. You can try ensuring that you get 6 right, 3 wrong. That ensures a 5.25 already. Now you just need 5 marks. And this 5.25 you can get in 30 minutes. Now you still have about 50 minutes and you need 5 marks. 50 minutes, 5 marks, once again is 5 questions, 10 minutes per question. So either which way, you will always have 10 minutes per question in this section if this is not your area of strength. If it is your area of strength, 99 percentile के लिए 16-17 भी चाहिए होता है. Because it is not very difficult, especially over the last 2-3 years, quant ka level of difficulty has reduced. I will say if in CAT 2023 in 40 minutes, if you were able to score 20 plus, which means 7 questions net correct आप कर ही रहे थे, okay? Here in 80 minutes you should easily be able to score roughly 12-13 plus. And if in CAT 2023 you scored say 27 plus, 9 question net correct. So in this paper, in XAT, same level of difficulty as last year and what has been coming, you can easily score 16-17. You can easily double it. आराम से, because you have enough time. Plus DI के आप कर पाओगे. The only thing you need to keep in mind is DI के थोड़े जो sets आते हैं ना कई बार, they are slightly lengthy, which is why we call them slightly difficult. We don't say that they are easy. They take time, but spend time. 15 minutes में अगर DI में spend कर दूँ और तीनों question calculation intensive है, each calculation intensive question takes me 3 minutes, 4 minutes also, 2 minutes to understand the sets, 3 to 4 minutes to solve it also, it's good enough. I have no problem. Enough time है. At least I will try to make it as error free as possible. मतलब 6 में 6 में write कर सकता हूँ, समझो वो अगर हो गया, 6 marks are done. After that I just don't need to worry. I'm absolutely chill. That's the way I would like to approach this. ठीक है? Clear? Perfect. Okay, so let's look at this in terms of breakup. DI का क्या आया था? So if you look at it, 2022 में there were 4 line graph and LR oriented, which was slightly difficult. Bar graph, graph on candlestick. Last year graph based and table. So table, graph based ऐसी काफ़ी ज़्यादा आएंगे, ठीक है? If you look at it, both I'm saying moderate to difficult and difficult. Reason being why I'm stating that is at the end of the day होता क्या है? Anything जहाँ पे time बहुत ज़्यादा लगे उसको आप difficult बोलते हो, ठीक है? So अगर time ज़्यादा लग रहा है लगाओ, कोई fight नहीं है. अगर उसके बावजूद भी difficult है, yes, there is no problem, then switch to quant, because what you will turn around and see is the quant level of difficulty turned out and became easier. So level of difficulty अगर DI का बढ़ रहा है, quant का घट रहा है, net it balances out, ठीक है? So please keep that in mind. Let's have a look at what the cutoffs are generally. XAT 21 का अगर आप देखोगे, once again sectional if you look at it, highest went to 83. 83 is still about 8.75. So 9 से तो कम ही है, right? If I'm looking at cutoff, but 99 like I told you 16, 17 तक जाता है. Look at XAT 22. What happened? Once again 99 देखो 18 तक चला गया, became even easier, right? 18 तक चला गया. Cutoffs once again 80 percentile से ज़्यादा नहीं गया, and 80 percentile कितने पे था? 9 पे था. That's it. And last year once again if you look at it, 85 percentile was the highest, that went to almost roughly about 9.5, 10 marks. So previous year 80 percentile went to 9, this year 85 went to 9.7. So you can understand level of difficulty just rose a little. So XAT 22 even easier, XAT 23 slightly tougher, but फिर भी 99 percentile जो था was roughly around 17 के आसपास, 16, 17 के आसपास ही हमेशा रहता है. ठीक है, so that's the way I would like to look at it. Now if I'm looking at it from an overall cutoff perspective, what do I see? Let's first look at it from 2016 to 20, because ये part अभी तक आप लोगों ने देखा ही नहीं है. इसमें भी अगर आप देखोगे, if you look at sectional cutoffs, you will see very few years where verbal has even crossed 80. Only once when it's gone to 85. Otherwise उतना नहीं जाता था. If you look at quant में देखो आप 90 भी देखोगे. DM के लिए स्पेशली, सॉरी BM के लिए स्पेशली, you will see it reaches almost 90 percentile. And DM also very few years when it crosses 80. Just 1 year when it reached 80. Overall if you look at it, roughly around 95, 96. मार्क्स परस्पेक्टिव में अगर आप उसको कन्वर्ट करोगे, ऑलवेज सी क्वांट का कट ऑफ सबसे ज़्यादा हाई जाता है. रीजन बीइंग क्वांट का परसेंटाइल कट ऑफ भी सबसे ज़्यादा हाई जाता है. And that is predominantly for BM. So those of you are looking at HRM, see quant हमेशा काफ़ी लो रहता है. Verbal cutoff does not ever cross 10. Last year also when it was easier, it was just about 9.5. DM also, even though it was the easiest DM we've seen in the last few years, it was just 9.77. Right? So let's look at XAT 21. So XAT 21, this we've already looked at from a sectional perspective. Let's look at it from an overall perspective. If you look at it from an overall perspective in terms of sectional cutoff, you will see sectional cutoff कितना था. Sectional cutoff in quant highest was 83. But overall, if I'm looking at it, the highest overall cutoff was 94. 94 orients to how much? 95. If I look at it, was 30.25. So 94 was roughly around 30 marks. So overall, highest cutoff was 30 for BM male. And lowest cutoff overall कितना था? Lowest, if you look at it, was about 87 for HR female. And that is 87 percentile. 87 कितना है? 85, look at it, 24 था. 87 would have been roughly around, I would say about 25.5, 26. So say 26. That's it. That's it. Let's cut to 22, where we've seen, you know, certain sections were easier, but let's have a look at it. Overall अगर देखो, once again 93 was the highest. 93 corresponded to how much? Once again look here, once again less than 30 if you look at it. 93 corresponding to कितना? If you look at this, I would say roughly about 28 marks है. Roughly say 28, 28.5. Once again BM, once again male is the highest. Lowest once again HRM female, उसका कितना है? 87 percentile. 85 देख लो, 23.2. 90 25.64. ये तो कितना होगा? 24.5 बोल दो. So देख लो काफ़ी कम. Why? Because XAT 22 में DM played an important. Quant was easy. Remember I told you quant easy था, 99 percentile, 18 भी चला गया. But DM, my God, crazy. Couldn't understand anything that was happening. Look at XAT 23. Last year things changed a little. If you start looking at cutoffs, overall cutoff, if I'm looking at, highest went to 95. 95 became 35 marks. You can understand how much easier last year's paper was overall. Why? Because अगर verbal देखो, verbal का cutoff भी 9.5 गया, DM का कट ऑफ भी 9.77 गया, ये देखो 9.9. क्वांट का कट ऑफ भी ऑलमोस्ट 9.7 गया. ऑल थ्री कट ऑफ्स ओनली आई एड, यू आर लुकिंग एट ऑलमोस्ट 29.5 मार्क्स के आसपास, राइट? ऑलमोस्ट रफली इन दैट रेंज. यू आर लुकिंग एट ऑलमोस्ट देयर, almost 29, 29.5. So that's the whole point at the end of the day, that just the sum of the three cutoffs is 29. Sum of the three cutoffs at 20% above will be the overall cutoff, is the way I look at it. So sum of three cutoffs 29 हुआ, 20% of that is 5.8. 5.8 ऐड करो, 29 plus 5.8, 34.8 with 35.25 उसके आसपास. So generally that's how it hovers. Okay, so if you look at it, last year became very easy. So hence I am saying, if you take the last 3 years papers now, 22 difficult, 21 moderate, and 23 easy. Now if this becomes your benchmark, and when 24 paper comes, you just compare it with this. If it is like 22 to 22 के type cut off जाएगा, which means 27, 28 पे you can get BM का call roughly. See, almost 28 के आसपास you got BM call. HRM could be sub 25. If it is something like 2021 where it's moderate level, you know, roughly I need to score somewhere in the range of close to 30 and I'm done for BM, and roughly just slightly more than 25 for HRM. If it is very easy like it was in XAT 2023, you know, suddenly I need to jump to 35. 5 marks का फर्क हो जाएगा. So अगर मैं BM की बात करूँ, in an easy paper which is like 23, this moves to 35. In a difficult paper, this moves to 28 roughly, right? And in a moderate paper, it's roughly 30. So this is very easy. This is quite difficult. That's how it's hovering. So that's the way you need to look at it. Okay? So be oriented to that. If you've taken these 3 papers like mocks, then when you write the actual exam, you'll know how to judge, and accordingly you'll do it. And keep the sectionals in mind. That way, this always becomes a target. You always know what to approach. Similarly, if you look at it from an HRM perspective, once again look at it. Verbal में देखो 90 percentile कहाँ भाग गया? वो 12 पे भाग गया. 12 पे. Lowest is 88 percentile जो 30 हो गया. Now if I'm looking at it, lowest क्या रहा है? Once again, if I look at it, I have 22, 23 and 21. 23 is easy, 22 is difficult, 21 is moderate. Once again, what is happening? In a difficult paper, HRM went sub 25. We almost said 24.5. In a moderate level paper, HRM went to about 26. In an easy level paper, HRM went to about 30. So that's how you will now benchmark. कि easy हो गया तो मुझे 30 के आसपास चाहिए. अगर बहुत difficult हो गया तो probably sub 25 भी हो सकता है. Hence I am saying use this as your benchmark. This is how you set your goal. Again, my mindset is always chasing a target. Virat Kohli, which I keep stating, right? Do it according to that. Clear? Cool. I hope this is very helpful, and basis this you will know how to go about it and approach the paper. Okay. Final last part, what will be the attempt strategy that I look at? I've kind of more or less covered it, but I will repeat it again. The way I like to look at it is, so I have taken out 5 minutes from everywhere. See, I told you 50 minutes verbal में डालेंगे, DM में 45 डालेंगे, and quantitative में 80 डालेंगे, if you remember, right? So 50 plus 45 plus 80. सबसे मैंने 5 मिनट हटा दिए. मैंने कहा initial focus is 45, 40, 75. Then you have 15 minutes to spare and you decide where I want to allocate. Those 15 minutes you can allocate wherever you want. Now, accuracy is what I want to do. I want you to focus on 100% accuracy to DI. This is what I want you to do. So if this 75, I can break it up as 45 plus 30 also, and this 30 minutes में I can score my 6. इस 45 में 70% accuracy में मैं बोल रहा हूँ तुम्हें quant करना है. That means roughly I am looking at plus 7 minus, so I am looking at 6.25 marks in 45 minutes. I'll be okay even if you get 5 marks. If you get 5 marks plus 6, you add it, you are getting 11 marks. For a person for whom quant is not area of strength, 11, wonderful. You've guaranteed crossed all your cutoffs. 90 plus है, chill मारो जिंदगी में, ठीक है. But for a person who wants to do well, you know, in quant, you should be looking at about 12.5 plus. 98, 99 चाहिए, you can even look at 16 plus. Verbal में once again, you know, you should look at 10 plus ताकि sectionals clear हो जाए. Sectional you saw last year it was almost 9.5, so you want to be more than that, so 10 plus तो देखना ही है. But for those who want to do very very well, you should be looking at about 14 plus. And DM, you know, I think it's slightly tricky. You can't state much. Last year turned out to be very very easy. There were a lot of students who scored 14, 15 also. Year before that यार 9 पे 99 percentile आ रहा है, तो ऐसा था. So बहुत difficult होता है उसको predict करना. But DM में generally the way I like to look at it, I turn around and state यार मेरे को attempt ना सब कुछ करना है, मेरे को generally. So even if I attempt all, say I attempt 22, I get 12 right and 10 wrong also. Even then I am looking at a 9.5, which generally will happen something like this if it's moderate or moderate difficult. If it's an easy paper like last year, क्या हो जाएगा, वो 15 and 7 हो जाएगा. 15 right 7 wrong अगर मैं कर रहा हूँ, I'm still looking at 13.25, which is guaranteed. Last year 9.77 कट ऑफ था, 13.25 पे आराम से 9 to 93 percentile हुआ होगा. So कोई टेंशन ही की बात नहीं थी. So that's the way I would like to approach this paper. ठीक है. So I hope this overall thing kind of turned around and helped you, and you know, it will help you set a goal towards what you need to do with respect to XAT 2024. And with 15 days to go, now that SNAP and all other exams are over, wholeheartedly you can just focus on XAT and hopefully do quite well. Do catch the crash course that is happening live on our BYJU'S exam prep YT channel or on our app. We are also having very specific oriented sessions on our app for multiple other things. If you're hypothetically looking at CAT 2024, you should join the app and look at all the additional material that is available free of cost. It is going to help you as well. In case you've done well and you are looking for GDPI preparation or something, feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you with that. Especially you know, we have one-on-one mentoring for all of those who who are expecting calls from the top 10 colleges in India. You'll be mentored by Srinivas sir and me. We'll give you one-on-one mentoring. Do feel free to reach out to us. That's it from my end. Hopefully this was helpful. In case you have any questions, go ahead, look at the comment box, chat box, go ahead and pinpoint. और छोटी छोटी चीज़ों में कि सर ये 148 नहीं होना चाहिए था, 130, 122, ignore all of that. Concentration was predominantly on the strategy and giving you an overview of what XAT will have in store for you and how you can approach the next 2 to 2.5 weeks. Okay, that's it from my end. All the very best to you. Catch you very soon again. And yeah, all the very best for XAT 2024. Also, all the best for your CAT results, which might probably come out just before your XAT exam. That's what CAT loves doing. See ya, bye bye, tata.